Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today. I'm Adrienne, a partner marketing manager for DBSync, one of the leading providers of integration and data management services and workflows. My colleagues and I on the product team are going to walk you through the world of data visualization, focusing on the what, why, whens, and recommendations for best practices you can use in your organization. Before we begin, let me first welcome Rishabh and Aman, and thank you both for sharing your expertise with us today. As you can see, we've got quite a lot on the agenda. So as we get started, Rishabh, I know you, as more than most people, truly understand the importance of using data visualization to better really understand what we have with our data and to determine some better outcomes. So before we dig in with a little bit more depth, can you help us first understand what does data visualization mean?
Sure, Jen. So data visualization is the art and science of visualizing data to increase its accessibility, comprehension, and use, right? As we can see on a screen, that data has been growing in huge amount. And according to IDC Worldwide Global Data Outlook, it is saying that it's going to be about 175 zettabytes of data by 2025. And that 2025 is not far away, just 2 years away. And we are going to hit a huge amount of data. And all this data carries some information with them. So it's very important for us to understand those data, and data visualization is one of the most critical thing that can help us to understand the data. And like processing this amount of data efficiently will become a serious challenge for us in coming days if we don't use data visualization.
Those are some daunting numbers, no doubt. So thank you, Rishabh, for explaining to us a little bit more about what data visualization actually entails. Now, I'm hoping, Aman, you can tell us why it's so important now that we understand what it is, why businesses utilize it.
Absolutely, Adrian. So I see that it's critical for businesses today to analyze their data to full potential. Right? So when you talk about data visualization, it can provide an organization an edge over their competitors by just sifting through huge volumes of data and kind of creating those insights which are meaningful, which probably make sense. So if you look at data visualization today, the first question that pops in your mind is, why should you even care? I think the first reason that you should probably care when you talk about data visualization is it gets processed faster. You're able to interpret it quickly, you're able to understand and make sense out of it. Another reason is data visualization can show you great amount of insights and trends that are going to happen, that are probably going to happen in the future, or how it's going to shape up in the future. Right? So it's a leading indicator of the situation or the business outcome that's going to happen in the future. Apart from that, data visualization also gives you actionable items, right? So you're looking at all of those traditional reports and huge tables, columns and rows, but if you're not able to make sense out of it and if you're not able to figure out the action plan, it's of no use. Data visualization also kind of improves the productivity of your teams who are building those visualizations, right? Because they're trying to arrive at an outcome or what they want to do with that data. And these teams could be any, right? It could be a sales team, it could be a finance teams, or could be a different team. There. Next, please. So as I said, visual content is processed very quickly and you're able to make sense out of it. Well, if you were, for example, if you were given this text versus an image, you'll be able to make sense out of that image very quickly. And here is an interesting fact by Pennsylvania School of Medicine, which says that the human retina can basically ingest up to 10 million bits per second of data. So it's you can process it very quickly, and there's the speedier action that's involved in kind of interpreting it and making sense out of it. There is another example that you see on how data visualization from our history has evolved, right? So typically, if you go back to second century and before, there were different kind of visualization that were done on in different forms, in different form of papers, and then kind of visualize it kind of evolved to where you could see graphs, and you were able to kind of represent that when graphs came into picture, or you had two-dimension spaces where you could represent certain information. So the different methods were kind of coming up to visualize that data and kind of get some insights out of it. Next, please. Another reason that organizations want to use data visualization is because the traditional reports are very boring. If you were to be given a huge volume of data which involved X number of rows, columns, and huge tables, I think it'll not be very interesting, right? So you'll not be able to make sense out of it. It'll be very boring. And there'll be a big amount of manual effort involved to kind of get some sense out of it or get some insights out of it. So organizations today are sitting on this huge gold mine of business data which they're not utilizing, or they're trying to find ways to utilize it in different ways, make it actionable, and and get that utility to their business. For example, if you look at this fishbone diagram, and this is probably a representation of a scenario where, let's say, your business is seeing low website traffic. Now, there are different areas that are popping out of this diagram. So if you see, content could be one reason, search engine optimization could be other, backlinking, promotion, right? So out of these fishbone diagram, you could see that these are those crucial components which you probably need to focus on. And it's right there, it's on your face. You can easily make sense out of it and get those insights. Next, please. Now, data visualization also drives action. So the end objective is, hey, you want to look at that data, you want to make sense out of it, but you also want to drive some business outcomes. You want to have an objectives that you want to achieve when you set out and start doing this data visualization activity. So there is ample room there for organizations to kind of improve how they do their daily set of activities or work today, right? So data visualization kind of brings in that flavor and helps them to kind of improve what they do. Other than that, you also see a lot of success in area of improvement when you talk about action, right? So as they say, if you can probably measure it, you can improve it. This will probably change too. If you can visualize it, you can absolutely change it. So going ahead, as we said, that the ultimate outcome is we want to drive action, but we also want to improve how teams work today. How do you want to drive productivity for various teams, various functional teams? It could be a sales, finance, operations, and in the end, drive better business outcomes. So, as I said, that what gets visualized gets improved. So, if you look at the data today, so any organization's ability to achieve those business goals primarily depends on how they're able to kind of get insights of how they're performing. And these insights should be the decision makers or the executives should be able to quickly make sense of that. Hey, this is where we are today, and this is where we want to go. And data visualization kind of helps you do that. Probably whatever charts you probably see on the right are those examples, right? So you see KPIs, you see sales targets. So it's a quick glance, quick view into where you are today in terms of the business and what you could improve. Another way of doing driving this productivity is enabling your employees to build these visualizations in the first place, right? With various tools that are available. Now, with technology kind of going full force, and you have AI tools, X number of tools out there to kind of build these visualizations in a faster way. You need to enable your employees in an effective manner so that they can build these reports and drive that decision. Next, please.
So, Aman, you pretty much talked us through the many multiple advantages of using data visualization to gain better insight into our data. In essence, we're going to get faster processing, large amounts of data, which then will highlight patterns that we may not otherwise have seen because we weren't able to dig into that much data. And then the goal, it helps us to make better decisions and drive action that with the end goal of increasing productivity and also our bottom lines. Makes perfect sense. But there are particular forms of data visualization that we know work better in certain situations or with certain types of data, depending on the results we're looking to achieve. So, Rishabh, I know charts and graphs aren't new, but how does data visualization better use these tools that are so familiar to us to enlighten us on our data and to really help us get better results so that we can better run our organizations?
Sure, Adrian. So one thing is it helps with is getting the secret knowledge, right? So if we see a huge data sheet, it won't like it is knowledge is already there, but it's masked. We have not been able to carve everything out of it. So data visualization help us to unmask the knowledge, right? Unmask the pattern. It helps us to discover relationships, not otherwise identical, like in, as I said, in large sheets of data and all. But yeah, if we do visualization, as Aman has shown us a very good examples, like how a single dashboard can tell us a whole history of a company from last 1 years, how many KPIs achieved, what was the sales in last few years and all. So it's really very exciting to see that how data visualization can help us, like in getting a huge amount of knowledge from the data set what we already have with us. So now Evan and I are going to review some of the examples of some effective data visualization graphs and charts which can help us to gain this knowledge. So talking about graphs and charts, I will start with the line graph. And line graph can also be said as answer to growth, right? So line graph is most widely used type of graphs in many commercial applications. It's simple, it's very simple and simply depict an overall trend. You can use this and see the trend of like past few years, few months, quarters, whatever you want to do with your trends, and it's very helpful, right? And it could easily describe how revenue has changed from quarter to quarter, or how employee satisfaction varies from year to year. Like it's very predictive. As we can see, like if we want to compare two products, A and B from last 4 years, that's from 18 to 2022, and we can see that okay, product B has done some has dipped a bit in 2019, but has been picked up and being constant from the years, and product A has been ups and downs from years. So we can easily see and predict how our product or say our revenue has been working from last 4 years, 5 years. So it's very easy. And just imagine instead of this graph, if we have the balance sheet of 5 years, and somebody asks you to go through these balance sheets and tell us how the product is performing, how hectic it would be, and how troublesome it will be for the sales team or say the accounts team to analyze. But just seeing these numbers, just seeing these straight lines, we can say, okay, yes, it has been working like this. And also we can get the numbers like, okay, it was around 25 million or 25K at that in the year 2020, 29, and then has reached around 65 or 70 in 2022. So we can see the change, we can see the depth, we can see everything by just seeing an image, and that's a very incredible thing. Second is bar chart. Like comparison gets more easier with this, right? If we are comparing the like two products, comparing product uses, categories, market traffic, conversion, anything. Similarly, like we can see a similar comparison between two products, right? Quarter wise, as you have seen it year wise. Now we have seen it quarter wise. So we can see in quarter one, product B has done the amazing work, but it has started dipping in product quarter 2 and 3. But as for product A, it's almost constant in all the quarters. So it's very intuitive. It's single image, and you can do you can make a quick decision what to do and what is going wrong. You can deep dive and see where we have to focus more. Third is column chart. See, column chart is a bar chart that compares two categories using vertical bars, right? So here we can compare more objects, like we can say sales per quarter in each zone. We can see that we have 4 quarters sales and we have 4 zones. And we can easily see that quarter one is not good in any of the zone, but quarter three has been doing great in all zones, and especially in West, quarter three has been the best. East, quarter four has been the best, and for North, quarter one, quarter two. So we can see, and accordingly we can plan our sales, our marketing around it, right? If West zone is going to buy our product more in like the end of the year, then we'll focus more on marketing and sending our, like, being visible in West zone at the end of the year rather than in North or South, where we don't see, like in East we see that quarter three is very bad. So we won't focus much on quarter three, or say if we want to increase our sales in quarter three in East, then we'll be more like aggressive in quarter three in East, so that we get more sales from there. So it's very intuitive, Edwin, as we see that you can just see a chart or graph, and you can predict a whole, like, plan of a year, or even you can see a whole future, like past of your company, and say this is what we have done in the past and it has worked or not worked, and what we want to do just by seeing an image. And that's like beauty of data visualization.
Yeah, the visual is dramatic, and it's at a glance, and the colors, you're right, it certainly shows you through one quick visual kind of the ups and downs. So, as we've said, we've seen these images before. They're familiar to all of us in the business world, certainly strong here, as you said, rather than looking at all the numbers driving us crazy. Great to see this here. But I think what it's also telling us is the simplicity, what you've demonstrated, of kind of the visual representation of familiar images, such as these types of charts, to really display large amounts of complex data, which allows us to then make some decisions about the way to best utilize resources and support operations. You can imagine a big hit for decision makers. But, pie charts, something that's very familiar, something all of us have seen probably since grammar school. Aman, can you tell us a little bit more why something like as simple as a pie chart really becomes a best practice tool in data visualization?
Adrian, for sure. Again, so as you know, a pie chart is a circular graph that shows the relative sizes of data using pie slices. Now, you might be wondering, where do you use them? And typically, as you said, so we kind of see them from primary schools. I think the best way to kind of understand pie slices is it depicts, when you look at a pie slice, it depicts each of these components as part of the whole piece, right? And you can represent them as a percentage, right? So, for example, if you're looking at your web traffic, same example that I'm going to, right? So you might be seeing that web traffic coming from different channels, right? So here, those different channels are advertising, web links, social media, and there is a certain percentage that's attributed across these pie slices for each of these channels. So when do you use a pie chart? When you know that all of those components have a percentage share. And I think the pie slice is probably a best way to kind of represent it, see it in a wholesome fashion, but also know that what each of these components contribute to the whole picture. Now, going away from this example, you can talk about, let's say, area graphs. Now, if you look at area graphs specifically, I'd say an area chart is a particular kind of chart that shows how one or more quantities will change over time. It has a feature very similar to that of a line graph, but when you have these data points which are joined by a line to depict the value of quantity and how it's going to vary over a time in an area chart, they are great when you want to talk about trends, right? So when you want to talk about how two values or parameters are changing over a particular period of time. So if you probably look at this example today, and let's say if you're a business, you want to kind of forecast that, hey, these are my revenues over a particular time period and the variations of it, right? So let's say if you look at this figure, probably the revenue is somewhere around 35 in quarter two versus your expenses kind of stand at about 25-ish, right? So you would see that you're probably making a good profit there versus if you were to go to quarter three and you're seeing that your expenses are kind of blown up. So area graph is an absolutely interesting way to kind of visualize when you want to compare two variables over a particular period of time, right? So these could be your key performance indicators versus outcomes, or it could also be to kind of understand or analyze industry trends over two variables that you have chosen. Next, please. So now we were talking about studying these graphs over two dimensions. Let's kind of change this around and try to understand what would happen if you were to visualize data over a three-dimension space, right? So which is probably a bubble chart. So a bubble chart, what it does is it would help you to visualize three connected dimensions of data and space, right? So it could be uh, considered an extension of a scatter plot to show relationship between these three variables, which could through a bubble chart. And the horizontal, the vertical, and the dot sizes that you see display the values of these variables, right? So coming back to this diagram, if you see, right? So we are trying to plot these three dimensions, which are cost, revenue, and product, right? So what we have done is, what this whole picture kind of tells you is you have, let's say if you are a business, you have about 5 products in your kitty, and you're trying to compare what revenue they bring in versus the cost that's accumulated versus the size of the product, right? So you try to get that view of how each of these products are performing across multiple dimensions, right? How your whole business is performing across multiple dimensions. And it could be used for other use cases as well, right? So it could be probably to understand your customer satisfaction survey, right? Because typically when you ask those questions, it's not a yes and no, right? Typically you might want to get those ratings over multiple variables as to how satisfied you are, did you like the product, or if you have a preference, right? So those multiple dimensions come into play. Other than that, it would also be used to probably look at your store performance if you're in a retail scenario. So, for example, if you have stores spread across a particular geography, you would want to get those insights on how your customers are interacting with your business, what products are they kind of purchasing, what are your most preferred products, what are getting you the most revenues, or where you're kind of spilling money over, right? So all of those views you can quickly grasp that idea through a bubble chart, and it could absolutely be used in the marketing side of the world as well, right? So when you're running those campaigns and promotions across different variables. Next, please. So now we come to map chart, and it's a very interesting way to kind of understand how a particular values are kind of spread across in a geographical location, right? So typically, if you look at the traditional definition of it, a map chart in the past used to be a representation of a land sea area that represents the qualities of a map, and where you could easily establish and identify that, hey, your it could be, let's say, your business, you're doing sales across different geographies, right? So and you can quickly get that view that certain geographies are contributing more, right? So let's say if you look at this graph, olive green regions could be where you're doing good sales and you're seeing profits, versus if you see the redder region, you're probably making a loss, right? So a very quick view of understanding how your how particular values are distributed across geography. This could be used in um, technology world as well, right? So if you're probably a global company, you sell in most preferred regions, which is North America, APAC, Asia, right? And you want to plot how you're doing in those areas versus the revenues you're making versus the resources that you've put in, right? So geographical maps come in very handy, gives you that entire view very quickly. You don't have to look at heaps of data there on what you're doing across those geographies. This one view throws light on how you're performing across the board, across the geographical presence that you've chosen. Next, please.
Well, you've definitely shown us a plethora of examples of visual tools that are really going to help us really better drill down to the finite details so that we can produce the most information from our data. So I think those, like you said, those visualizations have kind of given us a new insight on some things that we had sort of just kind of taken for granted or something. We've seen those before, but you guys are kind of giving us a new light and really kind of showing us that data visualization is a link between raw data and the graphical representation of it. So in essence, data storytelling, basically we might say where art meets science. So Rishabh, can you illuminate a little bit further on this connection for us? Show us how this art meets science, please.
Sure, Adrian. So storytelling is basically a technique for illustrating what is occurring in dataset by just combining values and stories, right? So in various graphical terms, numerical values are compressed and interacted and noted and shown in a uh, pictorial format where we can see and understand all the story that has been cooking inside those big sets of data, right? And a perfect example is the story of one of the most iconic soft drink brand that changed its visualization over time. Now, as you can see, that Coca-Cola logo has been like altered several times over the year, right? And if I ask you to go through the paragraph and read what happened when, uh, I'm sure like most of us won't go through it. But if we go through the image and just see how like Coca-Cola started, where it started, and where it is right now, so we can just see and say like, hey, see, Coca-Cola started it changing it in 1886, and now in like present it is in this form, and it has gone through several alterations. We can see how logo has changed, what has changed, and where it is right now. And just a single image, just simply we can see the image and tell you the whole story. You can understand the whole story. Okay, Coca-Cola started with simple bold Coca-Cola, gone to some graphic designing on this, then went to some other designing with bold C on Coca-Cola and all curves, then gave it a box, and then again back to the like Coca-Cola original form, and again did some experiment, and then again stuck with the one which is currently in use, or say the basic U of the Coca-Cola that has been there. So it's really intuitive, like how we can see an image and tell a whole story about that image and tell a whole lot of information can be put in, and we can just illustrate everything through that image. That's how we can tell a story using data visualization. So one
Yeah,
thing I'd like to add, Adrian, that we have talked a lot about different charts, different formats, data, like storytelling, using charts, creating lots of information from data visualization. But it seems to be very simple that we can use a chart, a graph, and then everything is in front of us. But it also required very sleekly understanding the process of data visualization. Like if we say, like, we have to know about from which data we are going to identify the, like, which data is going to give us the information. If you are selling, if you are doing sales in say north region, and you take all the data from south region and start visualizing it, I don't think it will make any sense, right? It won't give you the exact figure. Like if you want to analyze the sales data of last quarter and you don't know, like, the data which you are visualizing is only of last quarter or last 4 quarters, then it may be of misleading for you, right? So that's very important. Like identify the right set of data which you want to identify, like which you want to visualize. Second thing is choose the right visualization, right? You have to understand what is the right technique, what is the right way to visualize it, right tool, which graph, which chart will go where, which will give us the best example, as we have seen, right? Pie chart, good for percentages. But what if we have hundreds of say product, and we put all of them in a pie chart? It will be very messy. It won't make any sense. It won't let us see the information, the crux of it, right? So we have to use other data, other tool to visualize it. And the third thing is create a meaningful visualization. Like I said, like putting hundreds of data in a pie chart, like 1% or say 0.5% of our data is given to a particular product or particular value, then it won't even be visible in the chart. We have to zoom it up to see that particular single thin line present there and then analyze how much percent is there. So we can use different chart. We can use, say, bar chart. We can use many other different charts. The examples we have given, it's not limited to that. We have many other examples present in the world. And if we talk about all of them, it will go on and on. So you have to choose your uh, tool to get that meaningful visualization. And once you get the visualization, you have to understand it. You have to optimize it to know, okay, this particular factor is giving is low on number, then we have to work on that and make it a better contributor in our sales, in our profit. So that's very important, Adrian, to understand the 4 steps that is needed to create a particular beautiful data visualization, or say a data visualization story.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, wow. I mean, you guys have made such a strong case for the benefits of using data visualization tools. And as we've seen, to gain some real insights that we hope will help our organizations make better financial as well as operational improvements, like you said, not just trying to make better decisions, keep our bottom lines tight, but also create better productivity, which helps in all those areas and can help all of us in our organizations. Now, as noted, data visualization expert Nathan Yao does tell us good visualization is a representation of data that helps you to see what you would have otherwise been blind to if you had looked only at the naked source. And I think we certainly demonstrated that, because data visualization can help summarize such enormous amounts of data in very understandable, even familiar graphical format, that truly these techniques are an essential part of every business. So I want to thank you again, Rishabh and Aman, for all of your detailed explanations and examples, and for really walking us through how to best get ahead of utilizing these advanced visual representations so that your data management strategies and activities are at their best. So to find out a little bit more about our products and services throughout the data management universe, you can visit us at our website at www.mydbsync.com. You can email us as well at product@mydbsync.com, or give us a quick call at 1-877-739-2818. Until we meet again, continued success on your data visualization journey.